So the very first one is important tips for USCIS form I-134. So this has been a really common question the past few weeks, and so we wanted to make sure we give you some important tips about that form and just provide clarity about what this form is. So for those of you who are going through a fiancé visa process, you are probably already familiar with this form, or maybe not. Maybe you haven't gotten to this step yet. But for those of you who aren't familiar, I'd like to give you a little bit of background about exactly what the I-34 form I-134 is, in what context it is needed, and then just some tips about that form from the common questions we're receiving. So form I-134 is a form that's used specifically for tourist visas and fiancé visas. I'm going to speak to fiancé visas because our firm assists couples going through the immigration process. So form I-134 is the form that is used during the fiancé visa process right before the U.S. Embassy or consular interview. And it's the form that immigration needs to show that the immigrant, the fiancé that's coming to the United States, will not become something called a public charge, which essentially means that he or she will not need public assistance while they are here, that they are able to be self-sufficient, pay for their expenses, or the U.S. Petitioner is able to pay for their expenses. Especially because when you enter on your K-1 fiancé visa, there's a waiting period before you're able to work. And so immigration wants to see that you'll be able to support yourself. So that's what form I-134 is. There's another form later in the process called I-864, which is an affidavit of support. And so we jokingly like to call form I-134 a half-affidavit instead of an affidavit, because it's a smaller version of that I-864. And so the important tips for this form specifically are that this form is something that you prepare and would be taking to your U.S. Embassy or consular interview for a fiancé visa. And then also a lot of the questions we've been getting is specifically about, there's a part on the form that asks, will I provide, and that's for the U.S. petitioner, will I provide specific contributions or support for my fiancé? And I know there's a lot of conflicting information about whether or not you should answer that yes or no. And so really the answer is that it'll depend on your particular situation. Your fiance might actually already have money saved up, and that he or she will be using that to pay for their expenses while they're here waiting to be able to receive their work authorization. Or you might actually, a lot of times people don't think about it, but as U.S. petitioner, maybe you have an apartment or a home that you'll be sharing together, and technically you'll be providing that room and board, you can say, for your fiance, even though you're going to be married and have a life together and everything will be shared. So really, it's just a matter of your particular situation about whether you answer yes or no to that question. The important tip would be, if you're answering no, immigration might ask, well, what is your immigrant fiance's plans for being able to support him or herself? And they might also ask, why are you not providing financial support? And that could be as simple as, we're going to be combining, we'll be combining our lives together. We both are coming into the relationship before marriage with savings, and we'll both be able to be self-sufficient. And so the answer is that you don't have to pick yes or no. It's really going to be dependent on your particular situation. But really just knowing that if you're answering that question, just be prepared for those questions from immigration about what they're going to be asking. I know some people in our Facebook group were really worried that if they picked yes or no, that it would that they'd be likely denied if they picked one or the other, and that's not necessarily true. There's not a magic answer to that question on the form. So hopefully that provides you with some clarity on that. And then the other question we get about another tip for USCIS form I-134 is, a lot of people want to know, well, what evidence do I need to provide with this form? Now, I'll give you some examples of evidence that should be provided, but please know that, again, not to be a broken record, but every case, each case specific. So depending on your particular circumstances, it'll determine what documents you provide with this. But in general, as a U.S. petitioner, petitioning your fiance and filling out this form, you'll definitely want to provide your most recent taxes. If you're employed by another company and you get a W-2, you'll want that W-2 with your taxes, along with recent paycheck stubs and a letter from your employer just showing that you make enough and that you're able to support your fiance if when he or she arrives in the United States. So those are those main important tips for that form.